Stay with me and we'll make all 5 cards in 10 minutes or less each. Hey guys, it's Kate and I am back with some Christmas cards, and I don't think it's too early for Christmas even though we're really not quite to Halloween, but it's my favorite. So we're going to make some really quick and easy watercolor cards today. So I broke out the MozArt Komorebi palette, and our first card up here is going to be some ornaments. So I dipped into the carmine color, which is number 18, and I had this hole punch, and so I punched a hole out of some watercolor paper that I had used. I had some experiments on, so I had a bit of scrap paper, cut it out, and it makes it nice and easy to make that perfect circle shape. And you can really blend your watercolor. Now, while you're doing it, just make sure you leave a little bit unpainted on a side. That way you can get that sort of shiny look to it. But I'm just going in with my round brush and getting it nice and juicy. And I'm starting in the middle, and then I'll move my paper up to the top and up to the bottom to do a couple more ornaments. So what I also do is I will take my paper and kind of blot it on that paper towel that's next to me. That way I don't get any paint that might be on the edges onto my card. So it'll just help keep your paper a little bit cleaner if you want that. Or you can go and not use the little stencil at all and just hand draw it and make it look just a little bit more hand done. But these came out really cute, and I really, well, I like the color. It's really bright, and it is such an easy card to do. Now today I am just doing a single layer of paper, but you could do a single like this, or you could get a watercolor greeting card. I know they sell packs at some different craft stores and probably on Amazon, but something I kind of like to do just so you can be a little bit freer with your paper, and if you make a mistake you're not wasting a bunch of cards. I like to do just a single layer, and then I can attach it to any greeting card or cardstock that I want to once it's done. And if your watercolor paper buckles at all or anything like that, once it dries you can put it underneath a book or something like that to flatten it back out, so it'll attach really nicely to a greeting card. But I'm just kind of finishing up these balls, and I'm going to go into some of the metallic paints with this Komorebi set. I got the, what is it, the 48 color, I think. So the bottom 8, or the furthest to the right on the camera, those are actually the metallics. And so I'm going to grab, I'm going to end up going with the gold, but I had tested the metallic bronze too, just to see which one I kind of liked better for these. And just moistening up my palettes and going in with the liner brush. I'm so ready for Christmas. A couple of years ago, I made some cards for friends, and it was one of the most fun things I did. So I was really waiting until it didn't seem too early to do these. And I did that leaf print card, which people seem to really like, and I enjoyed making that one and a couple others, but Christmas was really what I was waiting for. So I'm going back into the gold, and I'm just doing some simple hanging, like I guess you could call it a string or a chain for the balls. And I'm just having it like it's going straight up, like they're hanging from the top. And just like with the balls, I put just left some white space open so it kind of looks like extra shiny. And the gold is kind of hard to see on camera, but it adds a little bit of an extra sparkle to the card, which is nice. And you could even add some more gold to the white space. I didn't do that. I just wanted to keep it quick and easy and simple, but I mean, there's a lot of extra stuff you can do with these if you wanted to dress it up a little bit more or add some extra decoration to it, you absolutely could. I'm always nervous when I go in for the lines because it's like, oh, I might just not make it straight. And I'm just going to add a little bit extra to thicken it just a little bit. And I had considered putting a few dots on the balls, but I decided against it. And this whole card only took a little over 5 minutes maybe, so it's really fast. Sometimes it's kind of fun just to sit. What I did is I ended up with a big pile of stuff, but I grabbed my watercolors and I just sat down and said, I'm going to see how many I can make without really thinking about it too much. And so these ones were my 5 favorites from the batch. And I'm definitely going to be making some more in some upcoming videos too. I have a couple of paper packs that I got, which I'm really excited to open up and try out. So we're on to the second card. So I'm moistening my palette again, going back in with my round brush and into the grass green color and also the Payne's gray. And I like to mix those just to darken it up a little bit. Some of the greens are kind of bright and I wanted to make it a little bit more neutral. So on this one I'm doing a Christmas tree and a really simple one and using the water dragging to get that color to spread a bit. And so I'm doing kind of a rough line and then adding some water and then just starting up a little bit further, leaving some white space there that I can spread the paint. And so I'm just going back over it with a damp brush and making each row a little bit shorter and kind of going back over the bottom to close up a little bit of that whiteness, but leaving some there so that there can be some highlights in the tree. And that way it's not all the same shade of green. There's a little bit of variety there. And then at the top before you know it. And so I'll go into my burnt umber and I'll just mix that right in with the green and the Payne's gray and do a bit of a trunk at the bottom. And I'm letting it touch the tree just a little bit, but not a whole lot, just to keep the colors a little bit separated. But I don't mind a little bleeding. And then I'm going in with that beautiful turquoise and I'm just going to give it a good swipe across the bottom. And my round brush, I really like that brush. It holds a decent amount of water. I've enjoyed it with these cards. It's Faux Squirrel. It's a synthetic brush. I think I got it in a set from Zen Art on Amazon, but it's been a nice little brush to have. And so I'm adding a little bit of that diluted turquoise mixture up top just for a little bit of a hint of sky. But it's not strong at all. So once it dries, you can kind of see just a hint of a color. I think by working through these cards quickly the way I did, it really helped just kind of free me up. I think sometimes when I'm working on the bigger projects, I'm really concerned and maybe overly concerned about where I'm putting my brush next, but watercolor painting, especially if you just are playing around and making some fun things, it doesn't have to take a long time and it can be really fun and you never know what you're going to make. So if you just grab a few papers and just sit down with your palette and really just be productive with it more than concentrating so much. And that really helped me, and it was really, really fun to do. And so I added a little bit more of the brown to the bottom, and I'm letting that bleed in, and I'm going to the next card while that dries. So for this one, I am making a candle, but for the actual candle itself, the video didn't record. So I actually re-recorded it, but when you see the card dried for the next phase, it's going to look different than this, and that's why. So I just recorded this so that I could still show how I painted the candle, even though it's a little bit different than the one that ends up in the finished card. But just like with the ornaments, I went in with the carmine in the palette, and I'm leaving a space to the right side of the candle with no paint to give it that light reflection look. And then I'm making it darker toward the other side. And this will be my Christmas pillar candle. And I kind of had some fun with my circle cutouts for this video. And I, it was just sort of, I had it lying around, so I was thinking, I wonder what I could use this for. And it worked out like a charm. And so I did the baubles for the tree, and I'm actually going to use the circle cutout again for the top of the candle when I do the glow. But before I get to that, this is going to have to dry first. But while this is setting aside drying, I'll be starting on the next card. I'm just adding some paint because it's spreading out, so I'm getting that side just a little bit darker. Have any of you ever created any Christmas cards for friends and family? I'd love to hear your comments, what your favorite thing to make was. Okay, so with the circle cutout, I used that to do my candle glow. So I went in to the brilliant yellow color in my palette. And so I'm using the actual circle this time instead of the circle cutout I used for the baubles. And I'm just going around with a thin line of yellow, and I'm using the dragging again, wetting my brush with clean water and then moving some of that color to the outside. And so my candle's going to go inside, but, and also this yellow was super rich, so I actually had to mop a little bit of it up again just because it was so bright, and I'm trying to get that faded look, but this palette is so pigmented with color. It's kind of amazing how much color is in each, little bit you get on your brush. And so you can see I'm still trying to just get it up after it spreads everywhere. Way too strong. So just go easy on the yellow if you use this palette. And I did have a little bit of the imperfection there at the edge. I think I lifted up my circle a little bit and some of the paint got underneath, but that was actually fine with me. I'm using it as a template, but it doesn't have to be perfect, and I kind of like that it has a bit of a hand-done quality. And that is the original candle that I did that dried. So I'm getting my liner brush next. Oh, nope, I am going into the flame again, but I'm going to have my liner brush for the wick. So I'm going back into the brilliant yellow to do the candle flame, and then also just a little bit of orange I'm dabbing into the bottom. And then I'll go into the burnt umber with my liner brush, and I'll just make a little line of the wick, but I'm not going to touch the yellow with it. And I sat there thinking with the candle, what else could I put with it? It just needed a little something more. So I end up going back in and for one thing, I put it on a little table. So I cut some more of that burnt umber, made a line and kind of dragged that down so that the candle's not just floating in the air. And that was a pretty quick process. Now, since the red was dry, I could get pretty close to it with the brown. But just make sure, if you don't want your colors to bleed together, just make sure that at least one of them is dry before you go into the next one. And this is what I kind of mean by, working on a single layer watercolor paper. I don't really have to be too careful with my edges. I've done a few cards that were just the folded cards, and sometimes with watercolor, if you're painting to the edge, you can, get it kind of on the inside and then have to figure something out to do with that. I know you can use page protectors and stuff, but watercolor is so unpredictable. But I ended up going back in with a little bit of that gold paint, and I'm just making a few dots down the side just to add a little bit of extra sparkle to the candle. And I don't really add more than just that one row, but you could definitely do more than that, or put in a design or anything. And you can add whatever sentiment you want on any of these too. So I grabbed my Christmas tree and I'm putting on some balls with my Posca pen. And I grabbed a red color that I had on hand. And so I'm just making little ornaments now that my paint is dry. And it kind of reminds me of like apples on an apple tree. So I guess it could be Christmas apples. Who knows? But it's that extra bit of color to make it Christmassy. And then I'm also going to go in with white to add a little bit of shine to those as well. And I really like it with the white added. It added a little extra pop to it. And I'm just making sure it's dry before I add it. And it was so fast. Besides the drying time, these are all right around that 5 minutes, maybe just a little bit longer, but they're so easy to do. And we have another one done. All right, so next up I have a card that I made. I grabbed my black ultrafine painter's marker. It's an acrylic paint pen, and when it dries, it's completely waterproof, kind of like a Sharpie or something like that, or a lot of other fine liner types of pens. So I wanted to make just a fun little kind of cartoony Christmas tree, so I just got kind of fun with the shapes. And I wanted to draw my Christmas tree first before painting it, because I was going to try to stay inside the lines a little bit and not have it too loose. So I did the hand-drawn everything, very basic, with the tree trunk, the tree, and a little star for the top of it. And so I'm in there with the painter's pen first, and then I will go back in with the watercolor paint. And I'm not being too careful here. It's just kind of a fun, sketchy card. You obviously can be a lot more precise if you want to be. So whatever it is that you choose to do. And so same as the other cards, I'm kind of going in darker to one side, and then I'm going to lighten up on the paint as you go in one direction, just to add a little bit of extra interest, and it's pretty easy. So I'm just doing each section one at a time just to keep it manageable, to get that paint down there quickly and let it spread into each other. And so I'm doing the top portion first, and I'm getting the darker green on the left, and I'm going in with that grass green again, but I'm not mixing it with anything this time like I did with the Payne's gray and the other tree. So this is more of a pure green. And then I'm going into the second section and doing the same thing, just getting my outline in there with some tinted water basically, letting it touch the layer above, and then I'm going to go back in and drop some color. And a pretty good amount of moisture too. But the colors are really rich. I enjoy using this palette. I think the only thing I don't really care for that much is that it doesn't have a mixing part attached like a lot of those palettes with the tin tops. This one has that palette just kind of glued up there, but I did have pretty good luck using my glass palette to the right as a little bit of a mixing tray, so that worked out well. You can use a plate or a saucer or anything you have on hand to mix watercolors, but it is nice to have it attached to your palette. So I'm getting ready to go into my last section with my dark green, and that will pretty much finish out the tree. Except for my trunk and star, and then once it dries I'll be adding some more decoration to it, just in time for Christmas. I really hope that you enjoy these videos. I really enjoy making them, so I'm always looking for feedback or comments or anything. If you have anything that you'd like to see more of, I'd love to provide that. So just let me know your thoughts if you have any about what you've seen so far, or any suggestions. I love learning and learning new tips. So definitely shoot me some comments if you have something you'd like to share. But otherwise, I really hope that some of you try these. They're very easy, probably great to do with kids. And I would like to get a card that somebody painted for me. So it makes a great gift too, I think. And it's easy. I think a lot of my coworkers will probably get one of these this year. So I'm going in with the yellow on my star, and I didn't think the top of my tree was as wet as it was, and I also used a little bit too much water here, but it's a pretty easy fix. So I went in and mopped it up a bit with my brush, and then I just kind of re-spread some of that green up there, just to get rid of a little bit of that extra yellow that had come down. I don't mind it going in there a little bit, but it was just like a pool of yellow going into the tree, and so that was a little bit too much for me. And then I will go down into the trunk with some of that burnt umber. You see a theme here? I use like the same 3 colors for all the cards. But they're my favorites. And then I'm going to let that dry and move on to the next one. Because I did say we're doing 5, right? So I'm going into the metallic blue, and it's so pretty. I wish the camera picked up more of that sort of pearlescent sparkliness, and when you're holding the card in person, it is a great color. So whether or not you have this palette, if you have any of those pearlescent paints, definitely use them. They're just so pretty on the Christmas cards. And so I put in the darker line with some full strength paint, and again I'm just dragging it down to make it a little bit of a varying color change. And then I'm also going to add a second little hill over to the right behind it. And I'm just keeping this card pretty basic. It's going to be a bit of an outdoorsy scene with some trees kind of growing on the hill, but the main thing I wanted to get here was the shine in the hills. I really, really love that color, and I'm so glad that I chose it for this card. So when I put in that second hill, I'm letting it touch the first hill a little bit, but I'm keeping it a little separate so it just has a little bit of that whiteness in there as kind of a highlight a bit. And I liked how that looked. And so once those two hills are in, I'm going to go in with, I believe, well, more grass green. So there we go. And I'm just doing some very simple and loose pine trees. Now the only thing I'm trying to do here is I want it to touch the blue just a little bit, but not a lot, because I don't want a whole bunch of that green color going into the hill, but maybe just enough for there to be a slight shadow under the tree. So I'm just kind of getting careful when I get close to that hillside, and you can see I just kind of had those two little dots there and let it slowly kind of move into the blue. And I'll do the same thing for this third tree, and then adding a couple more to that second hill. And basically I'm just getting really loose with the brush, just giving the shape of a pine tree, kind of that triangle that we all know and love, and leaving some white marks in there too for a little bit of highlight. And you can get crazy with your trees if you want to. And if you wanted to add more kind of in the foreground in the front, you can absolutely do that. You might want to let your hill dry, but you could add larger trees in the front if you wanted to do a variation of this. And so I've got my 6 trees, and I'm just kind of blotting up a little bit where I had some paint pooling. Just a little bit with my brush. Mostly it's that third one there where I had a lot of water and pigment come off the brush, so I'm just cleaning it up a little bit. Then I'm going to rinse my brush and go in with that blue again, and just a little bit, I think, of the Payne's Gray. Yeah, and I'm just going to go into that sky. So I like the grayness as just a little bit of a contrasting color, but I still want some of that shimmer, so I mix the two. And I'm just doing it darker at the top and then really lighten it up as it goes down, just to kind of frame out the painting a little bit. And then we have another card that's ready to set aside and dry. So I went back to the tree that I had painted, kind of like a little sketch, and this is all dry now, so I'm going in with my white Uniball pen, and I'm just making some dots, kind of like a string of lights or anything like that, and I'm crisscrossing them a little bit so it looks like they're draped on the tree, but this is my little cartoony one that I like. And it's kind of therapeutic to just sit there and make the dots. Except, you know, of course it stops working on me in about 10 or 15 seconds and I have to scribble it on a piece of paper to the side. But besides that, I'm making all the dots. And then for this one, I wanted to add a little bit of sparkle too. So once I get done making my dots, I got this Artfinity gold ink pen, or really kind of a paint marker. It's got a 3mm bullet tip, and I got it from Jerry's Artorama, and it has a really nice flow. It has a thicker tip, and I enjoyed using it for this. It was actually the first time I used it. I bought it a little while back. It was on sale online, and I like using it. It kind of reminds me of the other metallic paint marker I got, I believe at Hobby Lobby a couple of months ago, and I reviewed it on my video with the pens and markers a couple months ago, I think. And that one, it's very similar in finish. And it's another permanent marker too. But it's got that nice sparkle to it. So I got a gold, silver, and bronze. I still have to try the other two, but I'm sure they'll be just as nice. But overall, I've been really happy with some of the new things I've tried, and I'm using that Uniball pen, and previously I had used mostly the Jelly Roll white pen, and I think I like the Uniball better. It seems to have much better coverage, although the Jelly Roll really wasn't bad. And so there's that beautiful gold pigment from the Artfinity. Look at that. It is nice and sparkly, which I like, especially for Christmas. It lets me get extra sparkly because it's totally fine. The only thing I don't do in my house is actual glitter, because that stuff will stay with you forever. I think I still find glitter from, times we've been to stores, and I've even picked something up and it's just around the house. I don't know where it comes from, honest to God. But I love the pen, and so I'm just holding it up and you can see that shine. It looks really nice. And I think last but not least, I am going back with the Uniball just to add some extra snow or highlights on those pine trees, and just getting those little sort of blobs of snow. At least that's what I hope it looks like. And these were so much fun to make. And I mean, 5 of them, and this is full real process video, so minus drying time. These were like 5 to 7 minutes each. They were not hard, not a long time to make, and really, really fun. So I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of these, and I hope that you enjoyed watching this video today and maybe doing some cards with me. And if not, grab your palette and your brushes and get going on some papers. And so these just came out really cute, and they're just so simple to make. So hopefully you enjoyed this and you're going to make some yourself. And until next time, keep creating.